All right, let's do this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
You bring us the source material, articles, notes, whatever, and our mission, well, it's pretty simple.
We cut through it all.
Exactly. We extract the key insights, the really fascinating details, the stuff that matters, so you can get up to speed quickly.
Think of it like we're your guides wading through the info to pull out the important bits, help you make sense of it.
That's the idea. And
Look.
today, we're diving into one specific source you brought. It's a commentary from a YouTube channel.
Right. And it's focused on recent statements that have been attributed to Pastor Jamal Bryant.
And just to be clear, our goal isn't to weigh in ourselves or endorse the commentary. It's really just to unpack what this commentator is saying.
Yeah, we're looking at the specific points they highlighted, the statements, and the criticisms they raised.
So let's get into it. Okay, so starting out, the commentator, the person in this video, they make it clear they were actually, well, hesitant.
Right. Hesitant to even cover this person again. They mention getting sent things all the time.
And usually ignoring it.
Yeah. Apparently they ignore most of it, especially about this individual. They'd sort of decided they were done talking about him.
So what changed? Why make the video then?
Well, according to them, the specific statements they saw this time felt different. They used words like egregious.
Egregious.
And outrageous. They felt these specific things crossed a line, met their own threshold for, needing a response.
All right, so what were these statements that hit that threshold? What's the first one the commentator focuses on?
The first one involves something reportedly said to another man. The quote highlighted was, "You got pretty legs, man."
Pretty legs. Okay, and there was more.
Uh-huh. And then this other phrase, "the lentilated man."
Lentilated. That's a word I haven't heard used like that.
Me neither. And the commentator's reaction was, well, pretty strong, sort of disbelief.
How so?
He explicitly said something like, "I've never said this to a man in 52 years. His point seemed to be, if it feels that unusual to say, maybe it shouldn't be said, especially publicly.
From a pulpit, yeah. Did the commentary include any other details around this leg comment?
It did. It mentioned other things supposedly said alongside it, stuff about working out using shea butter.
Shea butter.
Yeah, and that the legs were glowing in the dark. And then also, do not skip leg day.
Wow. Okay. Glowing in the dark. I can kind of see why the commentator might say they were confused.
Exactly. He literally said, "I don't know what to do with this." It wasn't just disagreement. It seemed like genuine bewilderment. He mentioned ignoring other rumors, but this quote really stood out to him.
Okay, so that's the first statement. But you mentioned there was a second one that the commentator found perhaps even more troubling.
Yes, definitely seemed that way. This second statement came up, according to the commentary, while the speaker was addressing some backlash he'd received.
Backlash for what?
For what he termed a demonstration of love. And in that context, the phrase that really grabbed the commentator's attention was feeling like what it feels like to be gay for a day.
Gay for a day. Wow. Okay. Did the commentary provide context for why someone would say that?
It did offer some. The commentator explained that this was linked to Jamal Bryant talking about offering an apology to the gay community.
An apology.
Yeah, supposedly on behalf of Black pastors. And the commentator immediately reacted to that idea too, saying essentially Bryant can't do that. He can't speak for everyone.
Right. Got it. So the gay for a day comment was tied to fallout from that apology discussion. How did the commentator react to that specific phrase?
He seemed to find the phrase itself really questionable, almost nonsensical from his perspective.
Right.
He posed these rhetorical questions like, who would want to be gay for a day? And also, what man has ever felt that? It suggests he found the statement just bizarre and maybe insincere or offensive. He couldn't make sense of it.
Now, the commentary wasn't just based on personal reaction, right? He brought in scripture to support his critique.
Oh, absolutely. That was a major part of his argument. He specifically cited Romans chapter 1, verse 32.
Okay, what's the connection he made there?
Well, that verse talks about people who know God's judgment against certain practices but still do them. And crucially, also give hearty approval to those who practice such things.
And he applied that hearty approval part.
Directly. He applied it to Jamal Bryant, arguing that these statements and actions are effectively giving approval to things the commentator believes the Bible condemns. He connects it straight to that verse about judgment.
That's a strong claim. Was there another passage? I think you mentioned Isaiah.
Yes, Isaiah 5.20. He quoted it directly in the commentary. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil.
Who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness.
Who substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter.
Right. And he didn't just quote it, he stated very plainly that, in his view, this verse defines or codifies Jamal Bryant.
So he's interpreting these specific actions not just as odd, but as like a fundamental inversion of moral truth according to Scripture.
Exactly. Calling evil good in his framework applied directly here. And beyond the biblical points, the commentator also kept coming back to a sense of personal disconnect. Like he just couldn't relate.
That's a really good way to put it. It was a running theme. He stressed that these kinds of comments or actions are just completely outside his own experience, his own world.
Did he give examples?
He did. He said something like, he doesn't have any friends that could even sit still. If another guy said things like, you got pretty legs, or, claimed to know what it's like to be gay for a day.
So it highlights just how far he felt these statements were from what he considers normal or appropriate male behavior, especially for a leader.
Precisely. It underlined his sense of alienation from it all.
Okay. And then towards the end, the commentary shifts focus slightly, doesn't it? He expresses concern for the congregation.
He does, yeah. He specifically addresses the members of New Birth Missionary Baptist Church.
And he brings up
history.
Right. He references past issues, specifically mentioning Eddie Long, sort of drawing a line perhaps between past leadership controversies and what he's discussing now. And what was his main point regarding the congregation today? What was he hoping for them?
He said he was praying for them, hoping they'd eventually find a good pastor. He wanted them to see what a godly man looks like in the pulpit.
The implication being?
Well, the clear implication from his commentary is that based on everything they've been through, including these recent statements he's critiquing, he feels they might not currently have that clear example of godly leadership.
So let's just sort of recap what we've pulled from this commentary source. The creator's critique really zeroed in on two main things attributed to Jamal Bryant.
Yeah, first, that pretty legs comment, which he presented as just bizarre and confusing.
And second, the gay for a day remark,
Yeah.
which seemed to cause him even more significant concern, especially given the context he provided.
And he built his case using some pretty strong biblical interpretations, Romans 1.32.
Suggesting approval of things the Bible condemns, in his view.
And Isaiah 5.20, arguing it represented a twisting of good and evil.
All framed by his own statements that he just couldn't personally relate to any of it.
Which led him, finally, to express this concern for the actual church members. So that's the perspective laid out in the source we looked at.
And it leaves us, and you, with something to maybe think about.
Yeah, just a final thought to chew on, based on commentary like this. What kind of responsibility do public figures, especially religious leaders, have when it comes to their public statements?
And how should we approach interpreting or critiquing those statements when we encounter different perspectives, like the really strong one presented in this particular YouTube commentary?
Just something to consider.